We like to blame somebody. We like to pick a side and say it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. So as we sit here on this Friday, and it seems inevitable that Pete Alonso and the New York Mets are going through a very public divorce, let's pick a side. Who do you blame? Do you blame Pete? Do you blame Scott Boras? Do you blame Steve Cohen? Do you blame David Stearns? Because they're better. They're not better off apart. I think we can all agree on that.
Right.
Especially on a short-term framework contract. They were always better off making a deal. So for mommy and daddy to be divorcing, are we pissed at mommy or are we pissed at daddy?
I'm pissed at Pete Alonso.
Why?
Because Pete Alonso got convinced, talked into firing his agent. I'm just making an assumption now. Firing his agent and hiring Scott Boras so that he could be one of the highest paid players in baseball. And I'm sure somebody told him that, convinced him that that was true. And when you do something like that, I mean, Pete, he's not realizing that as great as he is and what New York and New York Met fans viewed him as in that little like bubble, he's not Juan Soto. He's not Aaron Judge. He's not these elite of the elite that are five-tool historically, using that cliche, and deserves to be one of the highest paid players in baseball. He had his niche. Like, he had his little, I'm great at this, let me be great at this, and let me do it for a team for my entire career and be revered here. And if we win a championship, I'll be legendary here. And he got talked into doing something stupid.
Yeah.
So I blame Pete.
I agree with the way you frame that. Pete Alonso done screwed up. 2 years ago, he was offered a long-term contract from the Billy Epler-led New York Mets, and he said no. Mm-hmm. He changed his agent. He hired Scott Boras, and I can promise you this about Scott Boras. He's done this with many, many people in his career. I've heard firsthand stories. He whispers sweet nothings into your ear,
yep.
And sometimes he comes through on those sweet nothings, and sometimes he fails. He has failed Pete Alonso. But my issue with the Mets right now is not that their offer was bad or their offer was insulting.
Because it was insulting.
Well, you know what their offer was? Let's be fair about the context of this. A 3-year, $68 million contract is basically the same offer they made 3 years ago or 2 years ago, minus the years.
Yes.
It's the same average annual salary.
Yes.
So the Met view of Pete Alonso in terms of how much he should make per year has always stayed the same. They're just telling you we don't want to give it to you over 6 years. It's not that it's a terrible contract. And who knows? Maybe that's the best Pete's going to get. My issue is, if you're in marriage counseling and you're far off on what will make him happy and what will make her happy, do you just walk away before it's over? Because this is not over. If Pete Alonso can't get more than what the Mets are offering, then how should he not be a New York Met? And my understanding about what's happening right now is the Mets are moving on. The Mets are saying, hey, we made you an offer.
Yeah.
We're going to go spend our allocation of funds elsewhere.
But I think you're making the assumption that the Mets view him as a steady or ascending product, and he's just not.
I know he's not. I'm not arguing he is. I'm arguing even as a guy who isn't ascending, he is still a very reliable ball player.
Yes.
Who gives the Mets a better chance of winning in 2025 if he's on the roster.
Yes.
No, by the way,
you can't debate that.
That's what I'm saying to anyone who's like, oh, screw him, let him go.
Right.
The Mets are not better off without him in the short term. And by the way, all these contracts are short term. So it's not like we're even talking about a 6-year deal anymore. So what bothers me and why I do have some anger at the Mets, until it actually happens, because right now Pete Alonso is still a free agent,
right,
is I don't like the idea of them walking away from this.
So who are you blaming most for the divorce, the potential divorce? Because it hasn't actually happened yet. They're just in a separation period.
Right.
Literally not attached one way or another.
I think right now, as it stands today, Scott Boras and Pete Alonso are being unreasonable. They're asking for things that don't exist. They're asking for things that are not even in the marketplace. But what would bother me, and this is possible, my fellow Met fans, is Pete never gets what he's asking for. And now when he signs with Toronto or Anaheim, he ends up signing for the same, if not less than the Mets. That cannot happen. If you're the New York Mets, the door always needs to be slightly open. Even if they sign Tanner Scott, even if they sign Kirby Yates, even if they sign A.J. Minter, because they're not signing a first baseman. It's not like they're going to replace him with somebody.
Yeah, that's Vientos' job.
So, or Pete's job, in my opinion.
No. I mean, if they move on, if they do not make any effort to
Yes.
actually sign him. They know what they're doing at first base.
Mark Vientos is the first baseman. They're going internal at third. So
Yes.
where I'm worried, because it's not over yet, is I don't think this would be smart to walk away. Again, think about marriage counseling. Right now, things are heated. He's yelling at her. She's yelling at him. You feel like you're a million miles away. Until the divorce is final, there's no reason to give up on this. And the reason it bothers me, I want to make this clear, has nothing to do with homegrown, or I love Pete, or I want him to spend his entire career here. Those things are true, but they're irrelevant to what I'm saying right now. What I'm saying right now is, and argue with me, because I don't know how you can, the Mets' chances of winning in 2025 are better if Pete Alonso is on the team. Period. Stop.